Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. I am Sir Tommy P., Defender of the Faith.
And I'm Empress Emily M.
And we are the Nephilim Murder Crew. Welcome to a Wednesday night.
Good evening. Good evening. How has everyone's week been? Well, not really. I guess a full week. We were here on Wednesday.
Right.
So.
It is Wednesday.
Well, no, we were here on Sunday. My bad.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Got our days right. You sure? Which days we're here now?
Sundays and Wednesdays.
Okay.
And today is Wednesday.
Okay.
Ba-ba-da-da.
So we got it all figured out now.
Yeah.
Okay. Just checking.
Barely. Barely.
Oh, man. It's been a busy week, and I am tired as hell. But, yes, we are going to do this. We're going to soldier on.
We're doing it.
We put this episode off on Sunday to bring it to you today, so I didn't care how tired I was. We were bringing it to you today.
We're doing it.
So I guess here we are.
Yep.
We're just gonna bust right into it. No banner, no small talk. Just like.
I mean, I mean.
You don't have anything interesting to say, huh?
Not really.
Yeah.
I just kind of want to jump into this. I feel like everybody's been talking about this in the zeitgeist the last day or two. I've noticed what we're going to be talking about sneaking its way in. Oh, good evening, the Nether Knight.
The Nether Knight.
Peace and blessings to you as well.
Yes. Welcome back, sir. You have been missed.
We have noticed your absence, and
Yes.
we have missed you.
Yes.
I know for a minute there it was scheduling and having to do that old working thing.
Oh yeah, no. We all have to provide for families and stuff.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
It wasn't meant in a bad way. It was just
No. It's
we
like,
missed you is all.
right.
That is it. Just we missed you, sir.
We had to put you down as absent, but it was an excused absence.
Right. Yeah.
So okay, I guess what I should do is just let us know what we're going to talk about tonight.
Yeah, that's a good start.
That would be
Yeah.
polite of me, right? So tonight, we're going to talk about Father Ripperger, and he specifically is a Catholic priest, and he has spent most of his time as a priest specializing in exorcisms, which, if you ask Dr. Shane Cashman, we're in need of a global exorcism.
Yeah,
And
I would agree.
that would be the only solution to get us all back on track as fast as possible. So, good morning, Scott. So, what I have is a specific talk that Father Ripperger has given, and it's on generational curses, and that phrase has been floating around in the we'll call it mental health pasture.
Yeah. Well, I've always known the mental health thing is just demons.
Yeah,
But-
it definitely is. Most of it is just demons. And so the generational curse thing, right? It's something that the new modernist, the secular world has embraced, and they try to do what they think is breaking these generational curses.
Yeah.
Well,
I would say it's kind of funny that you say that because honestly, it has been the last 5 years,
Yeah.
6, 7, maybe at the most that I've ever even heard like that term generational curse
yeah.
never really came up
No.
in public. People just openly talk about it. I'm sure it was a thing. People probably had used the words before.
right. But
But-
it wasn't a normal.
Yeah, it's
Conversation
just become
piece.
part of the zeitgeist now.
Yeah.
It's all just.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
made its way.
can't go on the Facebook without seeing 47
Something
posts about generational curse. Yeah.
Yeah. The
So, I'm
one
sorry, go
tasked
on.
with breaking the generational. Yeah, no, it's definitely a thing that's worked its way in. And turns out, guys, it's demons.
Oh my God.
Wow. And the way that Father Ripperger explains it is that each generation is given not necessarily like a specific demon, but there is a spirit in each generation, and that spirit manifests itself, in different ways. But if the specific generation doesn't actually like conquer that and like pick up their cross, then it gets passed down to the next generation. But then also that next generation has their own purpose. So now they've got double, and then
Right.
so on and so forth. And here we are, like we're raising the sixth generation. Our kid is sixth generation. So we're in that fifth generation. And we've inherited all of the things that our, parents, grandparents, so on and so forth, like weren't able to conquer. And
Well, we'll see. As we'll see, it was all brought upon us by the greatest generation, which in some ways was the greatest generation, but in the important ways was the absolute worst. The absolute worst.
Yeah. And
worst for the church for sure.
Right. And overall for all of us, right? Like because they didn't do what they were supposed to do in their time, we have to deal with something. So just like at work, when you have a specific part of the project that needs to be done, or you're a machinist and you have this specific part that you have to make to finish the project, like if you don't do your fucking job, nobody else can do theirs either, buddy. You're holding up the whole process.
Until you said machinist, I was starting to feel personally attacked, but I was like, okay, this one's not directed specifically at me. Cool.
No, I just mean like it's or like even when I was working at Wawa, like if I'm running the deli, if I don't have everything set up, then nobody can make sandwiches for the next person. And if I don't do this, then that can't happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's how life works. So to be super specific, the greatest generation is the gerontocracy, like the ones that refuse to give up the power that they've ripped, and held on to.
I feel like that's more the boomers, but I mean the greatest generation, they're all dead. That was my grandparents' generation. They've all been dead for 20 years now.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so how they still hold on to the power? The boomers hold on to the power.
I said the gerontocracy.
Yeah, that's boomers.
The old people.
Yeah, that's boomers nowadays, though. That's not the greatest generation.
Well, and that's the thing, though, is like, yes, the greatest generation messed up, right? But they're dead. We can't really hold them accountable anymore. Right. Then it goes to the next person.
Right, which is the boomers, right.
Right.
Well, they're the product of the screw-up of the greatest generation.
Yeah,
so.
And that's the... That's something that
basically all the things that they did wrong led to the boomers, and the boomers act the way they do because of it.
Yes. And that's and that's just like the slippery slope being a slippery slope, and now it's like a full-on mudslide avalanche.
Right. And then there's
call in FEMA.
We're going to talk about that tonight, and then the other thing, what was that?
Windows noises.
Oh, hey, whoa! OBS Studio disconnected, reconnect. Hopefully that's fake.
Let me see. I think it might be because we pushed.
Yeah. No.
Oop.
It's all reconnecting.
I got glitching.
Yeah, it's all reconnecting.
Oh no. Is this what happens whenever you say no to an update on OBS?
Yeah.
They pull a Windows on you?
Did we reconnect people? Are we streaming right now? Can anybody tell me?
Let's see. Let me look. Can't reach it. Let's try the YouTube.
Go down? No, our network's up.
Nope, I have Wi-Fi.
Okay. Technical difficulties here, people.
Hold, please. If you're even still here.
Right.
Blink if you can hear me.
I'm not seeing anything in the chat, so I'm going to assume that we've gone.
Let's see. YouTube says chat disconnected.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
No.
We got.
Tell me this didn't happen.
It did happen.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Demons can't get through 100% obedience, steel armor of God.
Okay, let me see where I'm at here. Is there any bringing this back? What, nothing's connecting. Are we sure we have internet? I think our modem went down. Doesn't matter. We're back on Rumble.
We're back on Rumble where we belong. So that's good.
I don't know what happened, guys. Our internet just went. So it
took
just
a kapoopy.
Yeah, I just went. I got it. I restarted the modem. Everything is working. So
we'll see.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. It does not seem as though we went back to
X.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that was going to happen. That's all right.
Okay.
We can always repost it there or something.
That's true. Okay, cool. Sure, just come back whenever the street lights come on. Or whenever they have to go, yeah.
Sorry, family problems.
Okay.
Oh, we got about 20-second latency. Okay. That's interesting. Oh, that's normal. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so where were we?
Redbeard said I was cooking.
Yeah.
I don't remember what I was cooking, though. I walked out of the room. Just kidding. I do kind of remember. So, yeah, it's the
generational curses that we were talking about.
Yes, generational curses. And that it was the greatest generation failing to raise their baby boomers with any sense of discipline or accountability, which then led to
the husbands not keeping their women in check.
Yeah, and the husbands capitulating and letting their wives run the roost because it's easier to yes, dear, than it is to say no, bitch.
Yeah, deal with the argument. Yeah,
and
so
not that I am like some perfect specimen of woman or anything, but
I gotta beat you every once in a while. No.
Now listen, if you did have to, I would acknowledge if I deserved it. I'd be like, you know what? That's fair. That's fair. But that's because I got my ass beat as a kid.
Right.
And
no,
like
I did too.
I'm not saying we should beat our kids or anything, but I'm saying that like
I'm saying we should beat our kids.
I'm saying that there are times in my life where I choose to do or not do something based on the fact that I got my ass whooped when I was a kid. Yeah. So there's certain lines that I know that like I could go right up to that thing, but if I go over it, somebody's probably gonna start swinging. Sorry, I didn't mean to bump the mic.
You've been doing it a lot.
I know. It's because I move around and talk so much.
Ugh.
Yeah, I know.
So anyway, the generational curses, and then the other thing we were going to talk about tonight was Satan's 5 generals.
Yes.
A lot of people aren't aware of Satan's 5 generals. But they're aware of the names. That's the thing.
I was gonna say that's the thing is people probably know the names.
You'll hear the names of Satan's 5 generals and be like, oh, okay, that's who these people are.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
that's why those people talk about them.
Right. So, so with that being said, oh, were you gonna say something?
Oh, I was just gonna say, do we want to start with the clip that started this all?
Yeah, I thought we were gonna start with the clip that started us down this whole road. It's a 5-minute clip. We'll probably bounce in and out of it, or we'll watch all 5 minutes at once. I don't know. Let's find out.
We'll see.
So let me pull this up and okay. So let's play this. Who is this again? Father Ripperger. All right, and
this is once it gets into a culture, then it becomes extraordinarily difficult to get out of. Our culture is in a particular precarious situation. Underneath Satan, there are what we call the 5 generals. The 5 generals are the 5 demons that are immediately hierarchically underneath Satan, and they are the ones who execute his plans. In some cases, they call it the table, because it's basically they get to divide up certain things. The first demon under him is Baal. Now, Satan actually is the demon of impurity, but Baal is a demon of impurity. His principal function is to get cultures to succumb to impurity, primarily through fornication. Once the fornication sets in, then what happens is that the perspective that the conjugal act is ordered towards children is lost. From that arises the idea that sex should be recreational and that you can use it for any way you get pleasure, that's fine. So Baal lays the groundwork. We saw this in our own country. It was called the free love movement. He lays the groundwork. The next thing he tries to do is, although in our country he managed to pull something off that was rather extraordinary, the next thing is after that, as we read from St. Paul, God delivers men and women up to their lusts, and men will start to want to sleep with men and women with women, which basically means what? Once the spirit of fornication sets in, which, by the way, I don't know if you noticed, in the New Rite, they removed from the spirit of fornication, deliver us from the litany of saints, at the very time that the free love movement gained ascendancy. What we pray for is what we get. You don't pray for it, you're not going to get it. After that, then what happens is the culture, the next three demons show up. The first
I did it. And nobody told me. Are we even
We
live
were
still?
muted. Scott's
Yeah.
here with it.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh.
I pulled an Emily for a
Can
minute
you
there.
can you highlight the Haram Laughs generational curse on streaming? I was chuckling reading that whenever we were listening to that.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know. I just thought it was funny.
Yes, nothing like Vatican too bad. And unmute my mics.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Vatican II.
It was a test to see if we were still live streaming. I wasn't sure if you got any comments. I was like, did we drop out again? Let me just pretend that I don't know we're muted and see if anybody pops in to tell me. That's
how you do it.
Yeah.
That's how we do it.
So anyway, go. You're saying now. So yeah, you didn't catch any of that. So Baal is the first demon.
Part one, yeah.
Of the generals.
And we're familiar with that one because of the Balenciaga blow up that happened whenever that happened.
Right. And yeah, Baal's all about the fornication.
It could have been 2 weeks ago or 5 years ago. I don't know.
Right.
The timeline's all mushy.
Oh. So there's Baal. Let's go on to the next, I guess, three demons is what he's going to say next. So
first is Asmodeus. He's the demon of homosexuality in men.
Sorry.
Then there's the demon of Leviathan, which is the demon of homosexuality in men, but of the masculine kind. These are the women who are heavy on the heels, we would say. Okay. Then there is the spirit of Lilith, which is the more seductive form of female homosexuality. After those have gained ascendancy in a culture, which, by the way, if you look at the cultures, every single culture is pushed in this direction. Okay. So, historically, not just ours, but historically, this is always the progression. Once you have fornication, you end up with contraception, and then the upshot of that is homosexuality and then abortion. Baphomet is the fifth one, and he's the demon of child sacrifice, abortion. In our culture, think of this. They shot down the fornication laws, and so they delivered us into the hands of Baal. Then they had Roe versus Wade and delivered us into the hands of Baphomet. And then they allowed gay marriage, and so now our country politically is in the hold of the top 5 demons in hell other than Satan. They delivered us into their hands. That's where we're at. An obligation to go and vote for those people who are going to uphold life, that is the values of the church, uphold life, protect the common good, make sure that the primary thing, and this is an interesting thing, one of the brainchilds of Freemasonry is communism. And communism, and we know that Freemasonry is diabolic from the top to the bottom. In fact, one demon even admitted to me that the name of every single level of Freemasonry is named after a particular demon. We also know at the very top levels it's actually Luciferian. It's not satanic. Satanic, it means that you actually worship Satan, but it's Luciferian, which means you become your own god. So we know that at the top it's Luciferian. But in the communism, one of the triumphs of communism, one of the ways that communism has spread its errors, as Our Lady said at Fatima, is that everybody thinks that the most important thing in an election is the economy. No, it's not. The most important thing in any election is the spiritual and moral welfare of the citizenry.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So that's your little rundown of Satan's 5 generals.
And that's what
Baal,
started all of this.
Leviathan, Lilith, Baphomet. Who's the fifth one?
Asmodeus,
yes. And they're all pretty much running wild today. You got fornication, you got homosexuality, you got bigger homosexuality, you got the sexualization of children. Contraception is just, that's what you put kids on now to regulate their periods. Like that's where we've gone now. It's a medication you just put somebody on when they turn 13.
Yep, pretty much. And they started doing that with I'd say the girls that are we're women now, but the women that are like 15 years older than me.
Right.
The generation before me was the first one that was really force-fed the birth control.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, those are, he says it, that we've been handed over to the whole country has been handed over to these demons.
Yeah.
Which, he makes a lot of really good points, and I am inclined to believe that.
Yeah. Scotty recently found out his grandfather was a 32nd degree Freemason. Are you cooked?
No. No.
There's
so
we'll get to that, but I was just gonna say we're gonna cover that in this upcoming part here.
Yeah. Just so that way you could have peace of mind while we're talking about this, on Twitter, I posted a comment with the view for the Google Doc. So if you go into that, it'll get all of the links and everything are in there. And I made a point to link Father Ripperger's prayers that he has. And in the Google Doc, there's a link, and it's the Freemasonic prayer. It's a 5-page PDF, and it lays out like the prayers that you specifically have to pray to break the bonds. So, you're not cooked. There's hope.
No, yeah, for sure. Not at a high level, but my father is a Freemason, so I feel you.
Yeah. Yeah. To my knowledge, my dad wasn't, so I don't know.
Yeah. So
he was just a Mormon.
Yeah, I don't know what's worse.
I don't know. It's, we're our own people.
Oh, well, if you did the prayer, Scotty, you're good.
Yeah, no, if you did that part, then you're fine.
Yeah, it's as long as you do your part,
Not a
you're
doctor.
good. Not a doctor.
Yep. Christina makes a good point. Scott, it's over with the generation after you because you prayed the deliverance prayers. Yeah, I agree with her.
Yeah.
I
also agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately, I agree with that because, that's what I've learned in the 25 hours of Father Ripperger content that I've consumed in the last week.
Yeah.
And that's his biggest thing is, you can pray your way out of it, right? Yeah. So.
Okay. So this is your show, Emily. I'm just the producer.
I know, you're just here to click buttons. So we're going to go to the YouTube levels of spiritual warfare. That one right there.
Oh.
And
let me pause this before the volume kills us.
Yeah, there we go.
Where's my volume? All right.
Just mute that for a minute
Yeah.
so that way it can play its ads that it's got to do.
Oh yeah, it's Google. I forgot.
So this is going to take this. What we're going into is the full sermon that clip came from. So we're going to hit a couple of different spots in this, and then we'll go and we'll discuss the generational curses individually.
So you want me to click this right here?
No. So on this one, we are going to we'll start at 6:40.
Okay. Oh, I'm just going to play another commercial. Sweet. Even though I just watched one.
Lame.
In YouTube. Okay, so let me do some things and stuff.
Lame.
All right.
Our lives, primarily as an instrument of our sanctification, even in cases of possession. I will make demons admit. Exorcists do this on a regular basis. It weakens them when you force them to admit to the person they're possessing that they are actually, this person is becoming holier as a result of the demon's involvement in their lives. They have to fight against him. They have to constantly make acts of confidence in God. They have to constantly working towards God. They have to work on their own healing. They have to work on their own perfections, their own virtues, their own vices, etc. constantly, because when they're possessed, there's no swimming freely. You either have to fight your way out or you're going to go down. There's no mean. But that's actually also true of the whole spiritual life. There's not a single aspect of the spiritual life in which we must not be working on in some degree if we're not going to attain perfection.
Okay.
Okay, cool. I was just making sure we weren't muted before I started talking.
No, I never even muted it. I'm sorry. Are you guys hearing an echo when I'm playing the videos because I'm not muting our mics?
Oh yeah.
If it gets to be annoying, let me know and I'll mute the audio.
So the whole point of anything that happens to us, it will all eventually work out in the way that God wants it to. So if we find ourselves being an unlucky person who gets to deal with a demon, all that does is bring us closer to God, because the only way to get out of the demonic oppression is to get closer to God. So even though it is a crappy thing to be found in, it's ultimately for your greater good. And something else that's mentioned in this, I don't know if it'll actually be mentioned in some of the clips that we'll play. But one of the things that Father Ripperger makes a point to say is that the suffering that we have in this life is to gain our sanctification in heaven. So if there is any trouble and strife that we go through here, it's so that it's to earn our spot, essentially. And that's more supposed to be a message of hope and you're not alone in this. This is something that people have dealt with throughout all of time, from all the way back to Adam and Eve. This has been an issue. And there's hope dealing with it. So,
okay.
Did you have anything to take away from that one?
No,
okay.
I think you got it.
There we go. We'll do 10:36 through 14.
Wow.
Like a
4-minute section.
Well, all right. Do 11:23 then. 11:23.
I'll start at 10:36. We can pause it
okay.
and talk.
Yeah, that's good.
The most elementary level is ordinary temptation. All of us suffer from it. And ordinary temptation essentially occurs in this way. The demons actually can introduce into our imagination images. Now, they can't create images of things that we've never seen before. They can take parts of those things in our memory and put them together in order to create different images. But they can't say, as St. Thomas says, they can't make a blind man see color or imagine color. They have to use something that's already there. This is one of the reasons why I tell people never, under any circumstance whatsoever, under whatever, to ever view any pornography, aside from the fact that some of it's being cursed now. The fact of the matter is that once you view it, that material, even if you ask for the grace of forgetfulness, God permitting, the demons can use it. The demons are on a very, very short leash. They can literally do absolutely nothing that God does not permit. And by that I mean everything from the degree of the temptation to the kind of the temptation. This applies to all forms of diabolic influence. They cannot do anything that God does not determine. The first time I came across it was this case of this woman who was possessed. The demon was possessing the woman's lower back. and because they usually possess a part of it. So I said to the demon, I commanded the demon, why are you possessing the lower part of the back? And he just says to me, I don't know. And I said, what do you mean you don't know? Oh, by the way, when I say it colloquially, it's actually very formal in session. I'm commanding the demons to tell me, why don't you know, right? And he says, I don't know. He says, when I entered, Christ restricted me to that part of the body. Now think what that means. And when they enter, one of the things that the church tells you when you're doing exorcisms is there's a series of questions that you're supposed to ask the demons and get the information out of. And what that actually tells you is, one of them, which is the sign of departure, is that when they enter, at least the head possessor, not necessarily all of them, the head possessor knows the complete dynamic of the possession. He may not know all the details of the process of his getting the boot, but he very often knows the date and the hour when he's going to get kicked out because it's revealed to him. He's told what he can and cannot do during that possession case as far as preternaturally manifesting, whether he's going to levitate or not or anything like that. All of that is predetermined by Christ. Whether he can even speak in languages, there comes time when the suffering and the punishment of the demons is so extreme that the demons will literally turn to God and beg him to allow them to go back to hell. And he's returns silence to them because he doesn't hear their prayers. But why is that? It's because of the fact that that what happens is that he wants them to have to go through this punishment. Now, part of this has to do with the fact that, too, is that they even know when they can and cannot reveal things in order to get the person liberated. So why am I going into this? It's very simple. You have to realize that God uses the demons like any other instrument. The demons will even admit they are slaves of Christ. Slaves of Christ. In fact, every one of us is a slave of Jesus Christ. There's only one question, there's only one dividing line, and that is, are you willingly a slave of his or not? That's
okay.
You had almost perfect timing for stopping point.
Is that where it was supposed to stop?
Yeah, nailed it. It.
14:32. I was off by 5 seconds.
That's all right.
Okay.
Hey, that was pretty close.
All
Without
right,
even knowing it, you knew.
Yeah.
So that's like I said a second ago, everything that they do, that we go through, like, it's allowed to happen for a purpose, and it all works towards the greater good.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key point that everybody needs to remember is that demons are powerless against God.
Right.
You know, I think sometimes people think that they're this crazy, ridiculous power that they can't do anything against, and it's like
they actually have less power than you. The only reason why they like get an upper hand on you is because you have come down so low. You've also sinned, you've stumbled, you've gotten comfy in the gutter, and you're like, I like it here. And then the gutter stuff shows up. Yeah,
also I think that most people don't believe in demons anymore, which
That's
makes
true.
you susceptible to it.
For sure, yeah.
Like we were saying on our Sunday show, like this kind of stuff right here is now known as Christian conspiracy, whereas 50 years ago this was just Christianity.
It was just Christianity.
Like everybody knew about demons and possession, and there's people think after the Bible, after Jesus' time, he was after he was done casting out demons, then they were gone. They were all gone from the earth
forever.
Like if in the Bible the disciples and Jesus were casting out demons, why do you think?
Why did he give them the power to do that if they weren't going to be around anymore?
Right. Yeah. So
Scott is here, makes a wonderful point right now. I was going to make it. It came to me while we were listening to what was just being said. The story of Job really helps understand all this.
Yes.
And yes, it absolutely does. Because it's lined out perfectly. It's said. The words are there. Like, do I have permission to do this? Sure.
Yeah.
Go see what happens.
Carry
it a shot.
On. Yeah.
I trust my boy Job. I know he knows me. It'll be fine. Bet, Satan. But yeah, that's the other reason I like to read your Bible is because there's stories that tie all of this stuff together.
Right.
And it not only is it worth reading, but it also is like it's comforting to you in that moment if you find yourself feeling like Job. You'd be like, oh yeah, that's right. That's why, that's why we call it feeling like Job, because he went through it. So I think that is good on that one. If you do want to if you want to go through and watch all of my timestamps and catch all the moments that I thought were important, you can go to that video. It's in the Google Doc.
It's also a 1-hour sermon. You can watch the whole thing.
You can watch the whole thing uninterrupted. But if you do want to see like the timestamps and stuff, you'd go to the comments and then sort it by the newest, and that should be like one of the most recent ones.
Yep.
And there's a whole bunch of timestamps and some little notes in there too. So you guys could go check that out if you want to. But I want to get into the 6th generation video now. Okay. That's the one I'm pretty excited about. I like that one. It was a very...
Building your online...
I think vindicating is a little bit of a bitchy word to use in this situation. But I felt vindicated watching this.
Okay.
I was just like, I knew it. I knew that I had it figured out. I knew when the ball was dropped and how it was dropped. And I knew it.
Holy crap, look at all the timestamps.
Yeah. I take my producing seriously, man.
I want to show the people this. We can't possibly show all these.
No, we can't possibly show all of these.
But let's look at Emily's timestamps here, people. Look at this. Jeez. Yeah. Okay. So where do we want to start?
Where are we going to start in all of this? We will start
32 seconds here.
No. We'll get into like the decent stuff. We'll go 9:04.
9:04 to 9:14?
Yeah.
Or to 10:14?
Probably the 10:14.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I watch that commercial.
Stupid ads.
I know. Okay, let's transition. Give us some volume.
Caught up caught up in the enthusiasm or the spirit of that particular age. So it's not everybody. But we do want to talk about how we got to where we're at now. So we want to start with what's called the lost generation. If we go back to the generation which came of age during and shortly after World War I, and that generation was known as the lost generation. It was a term popularized by Ernest Hemingway in his novel The Sun Also Rises. Some say that the lost generation is a term to describe a group of American writers who were rebelling against what America had become by the 1900s. At this point in time, America had become a great place to go into some area of business. That is, you could make something of yourself if you just put the energy into it. However, the lost generation writers felt that America was not such a success story because the country was devoid of a cosmopolitan culture. It was very rural in certain ways. It just simply wasn't metropolitan. It wasn't big city oriented, etc.
Okay, I'm pausing there. That is part of the downfall of this country when people decided we needed to be more urban and metropolitan and flock to these cities and build these giant,
metropolitan centers where they can all congregate.
Yeah.
They basically wanted in the next
basically just big playgrounds for demons is what they built.
Pretty much. And in the next 30, 45 seconds, it talks about how all of those people of that generation, they're called the lost generation because they went to freaking Europe, half of them.
Yeah.
They said, bye-bye, America. It's been good knowing you. And then they spent the rest of their lives in Europe.
Yeah. Yeah. Good riddance.
Yeah. Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
I guess. Maybe. I don't know.
So, yeah, I don't know. So where do you want to go from here?
We'll do the 12:24.
Regardless of how severe, without complaint. They went through the First World War, although they did not fight in it, many of them. They went through the Great Depression. They also went through the Second World War, but most of those did not fight in that either. But the ability to endure suffering, to offer it up, was almost at the level of instinct. It was so ingrained in life that for them it was just part of nature, part of life. In fact, for them, suffering was such a part of life that to talk about it was like talking about the rate of the grass growing outside. You just didn't do it. It was just part of life. Life was suffering, a vale lacrimarum, or a veil of tears, as we say, and so one simply did not talk about it. You just didn't talk about your problems, things that were painful, things that were difficult. And therein begins the problem, in my estimation, that would lead to a complete societal breakdown. The generational spirit of the lost generation was the spirit of incommunication, not miscommunication, but incommunication. They did not communicate. They did not simply talk to their children, or at least communicate to their children, the ability to embrace the cross, the ability to accept their suffering. Now this becomes a key point, because each subsequent generation not only inherits that demon from generation to generation. So virtually everybody in our culture today, the minute you suggest, maybe you should take up some kind of penance, you get this immediate wilting. Oh, I can't do it, There's just this inability to embrace their cross. But not only do they accept that one, but then on top of that is layered. So by the time we get to the generation that's coming up, they have basically got the baggage of all the last 5 generations of diabolic spirits, which we're going to talk about. They didn't teach their children to appropriate one's suffering for virtue's sake, as they had done. This is not a conscious fault on their part from what can be gathered, but it is a common experience of their children, many of whom are alive today who can testify to the truth of this observation. This was the generation of austerity and simplicity. They owned only what they needed, no more and no less.
That's good.
Yeah, I just want to stop with that. Okay.
Perfect. Yes, the silent generation, the ones who grew up in the Great Depression. That would be my great grandmother.
That'd be my grandparents. Yeah.
Yeah. My great grandmother. She was never a negative like. Ooh, it was so hard. It was just a very matter of fact thing. And when she was growing up in the Great Depression, it was not uncommon for them to have dandelion salad for lunch and dinner. Like literal dandelions, just go pick up the leaves and that's what we're eating.
Yeah.
And, now we got a whole bunch of crunchy hippie chicks telling us all to go forage food out in the yard. And they do it for the clicks on the TikTok and to try to be cool and niche. But like it's just a common sense thing that was done 5 generations ago.
Yeah. I think a big problem is that nobody embraces suffering anymore.
Yeah, no, nobody wants to suffer.
Nobody embraces anything uncomfortable.
No.
That's why why penance are a thing of the past. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, and you can see it. You could just see it. You don't even have to know people. You could look at them and know that they don't know what suffering is.
Nobody today knows what suffering is.
Right.
Like true, legitimate, real suffering.
And it's not even. And I'm not trying to be harsh. I'm just like when I go to Walmart and the cashier is obese, and just it works at Walmart. Like, yeah, you've had a life. This is where you're at, but also your inability to take care of the vessel that you find yourself in. Like, just because you don't want to be sweaty walking outside, just because you don't want to have to spend an extra 10 minutes making real food. Like, there's no. Yeah, it's really obvious that nobody wants to suffer. Nobody wants to put it in the work. Nobody.
Well, speaking of that, okay, so these are people, like you say, the fat Walmart checkout lady. So these are people on the poverty rung of society.
Yeah.
But look at the size of them. They're not
right.
suffering. They're not going hungry. They're not going without food.
Yeah.
Any suffering they do is self-imposed.
It's
not real suffering.
I was going to say, and the suffering is a byproduct of self-indulgence.
Yeah.
It's a self-made mess.
Yep. You give into your baser urges, and
right, because nobody told you that there was a different way to do it. Nobody modeled other behavior.
Yeah. Don't pick up your cross and bear it. It's
right.
You throw it to the side and take the easy route.
Yeah, and it's fine. It's fine. No big deal. I don't have to worry about it.
I'm not gonna carry this cross up the hill. I'm gonna throw it down and hop on that bus.
It's really heavy.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in my car.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Scott says, embrace the suck.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Embrace the suck, man.
And not to dismiss your other comment earlier, I too had a rough life that pushed me away from God, and now here I am, and I will fucking fight you if you try to get me to step away from him. Because without him, I wouldn't have made it. Wouldn't have made it.
All right, so where are we going from here?
We can go to the 1550 or 1532 timestamp and hear about the greatest generation.
Oh, see a 1532.
Oh, under the read mark. There we go.
There we go.
Yeah.
Right here?
Yeah.
For the home, and wives submitted.
Oh.
Even though they struggled with the curse of Eve, that's the line in Scripture is, your desire shall be for your husband. And in Hebrew, that the desire for means the desire to control. That's what women get stuck with. Adam got stuck with effeminacy. He capitulated his headship, gave up, didn't do what he was supposed to do. Men were men and women were women. Boy, that's a phrase for today. There was no effeminacy. Life was hard, and so softness was not an option. If someone was soft, they literally thought there's something obviously wrong with this individual. Okay.
Yeah. Picture this. You're sitting at home alone watching YouTube videos, wondering why you...
I don't want your therapy, especially from BetterHelp. Crackpots of all crackpots.
Okay.
Just kidding. We're back.
We're back. All right.
Commercial over.
Their children are called the greatest generation. Tom Brokaw coined the term the greatest generation to describe the generation which grew up in the United States during the Great Depression and fought during the Second World War, as well as those whose productivity within the war's home front made a decisive material contribution to the war effort. Brokaw opined that it was the greatest generation any side had ever produced, and that those of that generation fought not for fame and recognition because it was the right thing to do. I'm going to address that one later. This generation is sometimes referred to as the GI generation. However, it is hard to share Mr. Brokaw's enthusiasm for that generation. While it is true that the men and women of that generation are some of the most decent people you will ever encounter, they're kind, generous, loving, open, approachable, etc., there was a flaw in that generation that began a cascade of events that would land us in the worst state in recent history. That generation grew up during the Great Depression, but they did not appropriate their suffering while going through it. They did not embrace their cross in the manner that their parents did. They often, and you can read this, you can see it, you even listen to them, you can tell it. They often complained about their suffering they went through, their lack of food and a variety of food. So when you listen to them talk about the depression, oh, all we had was beets for dinner. Hey, at least you had beets, you know. They often, the austerity that they had to live under, they didn't like it. They fought the Second World War, but came back determined to, quote, this will never happen again, unquote. They didn't go to war to do the right thing. They went to the war because they felt obligated. And when they came back, they were disgruntled about what they had to go through, and they weren't going to do this again, and they weren't going to make their children go through it. They did it because they had to, not because of idealistic intentions. Underlying their great deeds was a spirit that was unwilling to suffer. They could deny themselves, even with ease when necessary, but they didn't like it. They didn't gain that virtue of mortification in which there's delight in the suffering itself that the saints had. Their generational spirit was a lack of mortification, an inappropriation that is...
Okay. Yes, so...
Further on the lack of suffering and not knowing how to... Oh, no. We got 2 Wigan outs.
Uh-oh.
I was hoping it wasn't. I keep glancing. Oh, it just dropped down to triple digits. No.
Oh, wow. Frame drops. Holy crap.
Tons of them.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay, I don't think we're actually streaming to YouTube right now, so let me stop that.
That might...
Yeah, direct all of our bandwidth towards Rumble.
Okay.
Okay, hopefully this is getting better.
Let's see if that holds up a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. Our internet dropped out before the...
Apologies.
So, yeah.
Apologies.
Well...
Womp, womp, womp.
There will be a recording posted to YouTube after this, so...
Yeah.
Kind of. I don't even... Because we have there'll be 2 separate recordings, and I started recording late on this one.
I'll make it work.
Yeah. Okay, sometime tomorrow there will be a recording posted to YouTube, but...
Yes.
So, yeah, so more of like, I don't want to suffer anymore.
Right. It's not working.
I had a duty. It wasn't even I had a duty to do. I don't know.
No. It was I was told I have to do this.
Yeah.
I'm here so I don't get fined.
Yeah.
They definitely had like a Marshawn Lynch attitude about it.
So where do we get to the part where they let their women get out of control?
So we could do the St. Thomas Aquinas 3 states starting at 2307 and the St. Thomas Aquinas 2307.
Yeah, it runs into 25. Yeah, okay. Sweet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Their place in society. I love that line from St. Thomas. He says, women are in 3 states. Eve was created in the state of subordination. She was created under Adam, but the hallmark of that stage was that he took care of her. He loved her, he was solicitous to her, he treated her well. But then after the fall, she entered into a state of subordination, which means Adam didn't treat her very well after this. But he said, in heaven, the 3rd state, women are neither in a state of subordination or subjection because some women rule in heaven. So I tell women, your place in this life is not the issue. It's the sanctity with which you achieve through that process that's going to be the issue. And then some of you probably have me heard, I tell women, look, if you want to control your husband, don't go for the short-term payout in this life. Submit to him, become holier than him, you'll get a higher place in heaven, then you can boss him for all eternity if you want. All right. They rebelled against her husband's authority. They disrupted the peace of the family life. They usurped his authority. Usurpation is the sin against justice, where you act against someone's rightful authority. They permitted triangulation among their children, where children go from one parent says no, they run over to the other parent. Can we do this? Yes. So they do that triangulation thing. They permitted that. They would countermand the decisions of their husbands. They're the ones who contravene the husband's authority to discipline, although not always. They lacked control over their spending, and unlike women of the lost generation, they had no taste for austerity and the virtue of simplicity, as is evidenced the taste they had often had for their own homes, which they felt were beneath them, even when they had these phenomenal homes. They always felt that somehow or another they were gypped in life. They didn't get everything they wanted. They were the ones who began the use of contraception, as well as all women who succumbed to the curse of Eve due to the natural law written in their hearts with their husband's authority and the role of subordination. They acted against it and became angry and bitter. When you don't fulfill the natural law, you're going to become angry and bitter.
Okay, I'll pause it there. I think everybody gets the point.
Yeah.
The women of this generation are the reason why the world is the way it is today.
Yeah, it definitely is.
And they're the reason why liberal white women are out of control and destroying the world.
Yeah. It's rough out, yeah.
And this is all part of generational curses. Because these people did this, we are all cursed.
Yep. Because
they let the demons run wild.
Yep. Because they
disobeyed the Lord. They disobeyed natural law.
They ate the second apple of feminism.
Yeah. Pretty much.
And accepted the lie that there was equality. And with that acceptance of the lie, it emboldened them to act bitchy and dumb. And now here we are. In 2024 with bearded men opening the Olympics dressed as women with their nuts hanging out.
Yeah.
Delightful.
So
delightful. So that's that generation. We can, now that we know that their sins and what they did, we can go to 30. Oh wait, we'll do 3032. Yeah, that one.
Oh, come on. You and your stupid commercials.
60s.
Oh, it's just...
How?
Watch is their children who would be undisciplined, disrespectful to authority, and licentious. They'd just be out of control. The baby boomers are, in the end, example of the words, you sow, you reap what you sow. Because they did not discipline their children and would not act according to discipline, they failed to form their children morally. And this became a huge problem with the children that the hippie generation begot. But the impiety was not merely towards their parents. The impiety is a twofold virtue in which one not only honors one's superiors, but also takes due solicitude or care of those under you. The baby boomers are hallmarked by an inability to be led. You can't correct them. You can't tell them anything. They have a complete disrespect for authority, and they're constantly clamoring for power under the guise of democracy. But once they get in, they're absolute dictators because they're just following their appetites. However, once they may manage to gain the position of authority through democracy or some other means, they're either ruthless, disregard the goods of those under them, they're selfish and overly demanding, or they simply do not care about the state of affairs in relationship to those people under them.
I'm going to pause that there because basically all of our politicians right now are from this generation.
They are, yeah.
Most of them, should I say, your Joe Bidens, your Pelosi's, your Schumers, all these people that refuse to relinquish power in their 80s, that can't even walk.
The one that really solidified it for me was RBG.
Yeah.
When Ginsburg was sick and sickly and frail and just so old and done looking, she could have retired. She could have retired with grace. She should have
retired 10 years before she got that sick.
Yep. And that was.
But she's the true spirit of that.
Yes.
Of the woman that we're talking about here. The just defiant to the natural order. And I finally got my claws on it. Not only that, but I'm going to try to force this onto the rest of society. I don't care if you want this or not.
The devouring mother archetype. Spirit of Lilith.
Yeah.
One might say.
But yeah, this is this generation. And they're the ones I'd say responsible for the world we live in because they're the ones still running it. But but their parents are the ones that instilled this in them.
Yes.
So as much as I used to think that the greatest generation was the greatest generation,
they dropped the ball.
That once they dropped the ball. They soured on me a while back when I started looking into it a little more and was like,
realizing that that's right, you were these people's parents. That's how they got this way.
Yeah.
That's how they got this way.
Yep.
So we could slip into what would that be 3156 to find out who the boomers end up making.
Oh, that's me, Gen Xers.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, it's a weird way that they lumped this in. So they did Gen X and Gen Y, and they call it the Me generation.
Really?
And it's basically 1977 to 1989.
Okay, so they kind of just moved millennials on a few years. I get that,
but because it is kind of like a weird thing because that was that first generation where you weren't having kids at 18 years old.
Yeah,
you weren't getting married right out of high school and popping out kids and having 9 of them by the time you're 30.
Yeah, no,
those days were done.
I agree. There is a micro generation between Gen X and millennials.
Yeah,
there absolutely is because it wasn't until you were born in the 90s that you kind of grew up in that millennial. The
real millennial,
the electronic age.
Yeah,
if you were born in 87, you're not really a millennial. I don't know.
Really. I don't think so. Even me at 1990, I claim elder millennial because I had dial up. I was poor, so I basically was a Gen X kid.
Yeah,
I played outside for a decent amount of my youth. Don't get me wrong. I had dial up. I was on the internet, but it's I had a decent enough blend that I don't fully identify with the 1995 and younger swath of the millennials because they're full on daycare, sit in front of the TV, have the TV dinner, the baby they were raised by everything else but their parents.
Right. Yeah, I agree with another night there. He says her sister calls herself Gen Y because she was born in 83. And I agree with that because what's the cutoff for Gen X? 81, 80? Depends on what you look. It's 80, 81, 82, somewhere like that. But somebody born in 83 is definitely not a millennial.
No,
they
not
grew up in the same kind of childhood that I had, where they might have been a little younger, but the internet wasn't really a thing till I was in high school.
Right.
At least not really. It kind of existed. There was message boards and
right.
But it wasn't until I was really in high school where you could actually use the internet for something.
Yeah, it wasn't everybody's on it, people know about it type of thing. It was still for grown-ups.
Yeah.
Emails and things teenagers were not interested in.
Right. But so to say I'm a Gen X and somebody born a couple years after me is millennial is just there's this thing. You guys skipped
a whole swath of people.
Yeah. And I understand that the generation is this year is X amount of years in between, but
that's just not.
No, it got once the electronic age came. Yeah. That really shifted everything to where people within a decade of each other grew up completely
different. Oh, yeah. For sure. Yeah.
So you can't really use that 17, 18, whatever many year that they were using.
No, not anymore. Not anymore.
Okay, so where are we going from here?
So we're gonna go 31:56, and we'll let it run for the 2 minutes to get through to the lack of religiosity, which is the next.
Okay. 31:56. Man, you're gonna make these people watch this long video.
They'll be fun.
Yeah, no, I get it. Honestly, I think this is the better way to do it. Rather than us try to watch these videos and do a little reading and try to memorize as much as we can and come to try to present you something, I think it's easier to just kind of
a watch along.
Yeah, you guys, we'll show you the important bits. We'll give us some opinions on it. We'll get your opinions on it. But yeah, this just seemed better than the last couple that we tried to do this with, where we just tried to memorize a bunch of information, and then we got up here and we're just like,
almost like a college presentation or something.
Yeah,
like a report.
Yeah,
it was feeling a little book reporty, but we're not good students.
Right? Yeah, I didn't do any of the work.
I mean, we did do the work. We're just not gonna sit here and write a full-on paper for it.
Right. I'm just gonna try to remember the important bits and pieces, and then they come in all weird orders, and I leave a bunch of important stuff out, and then when the show's over, I'm like, I forgot to say this and that. So, yeah, I thought this okay. So we're going. We're in a 31:56 here.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, for the me generation.
Known as Generation X and Y. While there appears no universally agreed upon set of years which constitutes this generation, it's generally considered to be those people born somewhere in the early 1960s through the early 1980s, usually no later than 1981 or 1982. This generation is sometimes called the 13th generation. Generation Y describes the demographic cohort following Generation X, or kind of that interim generation. Authors have used birth dates ranging anywhere from the mid-1970s to the late 1980s, early or mid-1990s for Generation Y, and or as late as the year 2000 to define this generation. This generation is known as the me generation because the members of this generation are noted for their narcissism, and that is their spirit. It's all about them. Well, what do you expect? First of all, you won't suffer, so you got that demon going on. Then you indulge them, so these people are intemperate because from their parents were intemperate, and they didn't temper them. And so what did it do? It made them selfish and self-centered. The generational spirit of Generation X and Y is a spirit of amorality, or absence of religiosity. The members of this generation are often hallmarked by nice personalities. In other words, they're kind of nice people, actually. Somewhat easy to get along with, and they're not mean-spirited at all, generally. They're not immoral in the sense of which they'll see in the next generation. In other words, they're not going to steal your property, they're not going to hurt you, they're not going to try and rip you off, generally speaking. They don't like arguing, as a general rule. They tend not to see the point in religion, however. And this is the generation that was the first to be allowed to, quote, choose which religion they would follow, unquote. That set the stage for the 6th generation, which is their progeny. We'll talk about them in a minute. This generation, because everything was given to them and they never had to work for anything when they were younger, anything that requires effort is annoying to them and is ignored. Which is why this
I got so many employees like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't.
So we have the lack of suffering, the intemperance, which leads to indocility, which means that these people can't be led, and then you have the amorality, and which is the lack of religiosity. So like you can't do anything hard. You have no endurance. You have no idea how to do hard things or why hard things are worth doing.
Yeah.
And you don't really give a crap about doing them.
Yeah.
It sounds delightful. I don't know how it could go wrong. I don't know how it could definitely cause a mass decline of society.
Yeah.
It seems like it would work out just fine.
There's a lot of people my age that I grew up with, especially since I grew up in I don't say affluent, but upper middle class area. Is nobody my age that I grew up around ever had to work for anything.
Right.
Like their parents gave them everything all the way through college. Like fortunately, I had very good parents, and also my parents were not near as well off as most of the kids in town.
Mm-hmm.
So my parents taught me if you want something, you're going to go
you
work for it.
You got to work for it, right?
So at 15 years, I mean, I mowed as a kid up until I could legally work. I mowed lawns and stuff for extra money, but when I turned 15 and could legally get a job, I went down to there was a seafood restaurant a couple blocks from where I grew up. You've been there.
I've seen it.
Yeah, she's seen it. And I literally worked at 15 years old after school on the weekends as a dishwasher in a seafood restaurant. And every Tuesday and Thursday night was all you could eat crab night. So literally at 15 years old, in between washing dishes, I had to shuck bushels of crabs. Yeah. Like, rip the top off, spray them out, and throw them so they could be cooked for the all you can eat crab night. So, yeah, I learned hard work as a kid.
Yeah.
I definitely did.
Yep.
And nobody I grew up with in that town. There's plenty of people that grew up, that are my age, that grew up with, working and stuff, but not many people I grew up with.
Yeah.
And it shows nowadays.
It does. It really does. Yeah. And that's I learned the value of hard work at a young age. I did warehouse work in Texas. Like it'd get 115 degrees in that bitch, and I'm moving air conditioners and water heaters and pulling boxes of ducting and all kinds of stuff. It's nobody my age. When I tell people I've had it, well, except for the last couple of years, but when I used to tell people that I've been in the workforce since I was 13 years old getting a paycheck, people my age would be like, "Oh my God, that's illegal." The hell it is.
No, yeah, it's not illegal.
It's not illegal if you're in poverty, right? If it's the difference between like having a place to live or somebody working under the table, and the people in your town understand like life's life. We grew up working as kids. The government's the only one who told us we couldn't do this no more. So like growing up in my generation, where you could get working papers and start working at 13, I believe. Mm-hmm. But it was only certain types of jobs, and those types of jobs aren't really available. No. I had to wait till I was 15 before I could get the type of job that was available, which was like a dishwasher or a fast food employee or something. Yeah, the reason I got the job I got was because my grandpa was the manager. Right, and when there's family involved, there is actually different laws involved too. So so I did not get paid minimum wage. I got paid less than minimum wage because that's legal to do. I got paid minimum wage. Minimum wage for my first job was $5.05 an hour. Yeah. Yeah. That's funny because I think I was paid like $5.19, and minimum wage in Texas at the time was $7.25. Yeah. So I got paid less, but then I left that job to go wait tables for $2.19 an hour. Right. That was smart. Plus tips. Yeah, plus tips. It worked out. Yeah. But yeah, and you were still doing it when I met you. That's true. That is true. And that's the thing is like as a people, right? Individuals, families, communities, this is normal for us. It's normal for someone to have chores growing up and have an expectation set of them in their neighborhood, in their community. Like all of those things are important to shape us as human beings. So that way, when we're adults, we can be a part of our community and be fully assimilated adults. But because each generation has not done everything that they're supposed to, it's like they were given a recipe, right? I don't know if any of y'all have tried to bake, and I'm going with bacon because you got to be correct when you're baking things. It's like they got a recipe, and somewhere along the line, they were like, oop, don't really like that ingredient. Let me just not add that anymore. And then, hand it off to the next person. And they're like, well, don't like that. Let me just take that out of there. And then before you know it, we get the recipe. And like it comes out as like hard bricks. It's not even a cookie anymore. Like it doesn't work. It's not at all what it's supposed to be. And that's why we find ourselves in the mess that we're in. Yeah. So one of your notes here caught my eye, so I can't wait to get to that. Oh, okay. What is it? No shame means no honor. Oh, yeah. That's a good one. We're not quite there yet. That's okay. Well, we're almost there. So we're what, like right around here, 3814? We just did the 3355, so we already know how the boomers fucked up. We'll do 3702, the intellectualizing childhood. Okay. Because that kind of ties into what I was just saying. Okay, yeah. Well, here we go.
Question. Would you build a website for a major brand
with
more
for
than
commercial,
200
guys.
million?
There we go.
Oh, what do we mean by that?
YouTube.
If you get punished for it and they don't like it and they think it's, out of line. This was the generation under Dr. Spock. Now, Dr. Spock said that you should never spank your child, and from that point on, you got that problem. And as a result, they never associated bad behavior with pain and good behavior with reward. As a result, they have no conscience or sense of right and wrong, and because they were never punished, they never grasped the binding force of a law. Intellectually, the law, when you tell them this is the law, it just doesn't seem to hold any force over them. They always got what they wanted, whether they followed the law or not. This generation has no sense of the binding force of the law. As I mentioned, this applies not just to societal norms and laws, but even to the law of God. This generation thinks that even the slightest excuse exempts them from the laws that bind under the pain of mortal sin. You'll sit there and you'll talk to me like, by the way, this is the generation that all started living together, right, before they got married. And and you'll tell them, hey, it says in Scripture you're not supposed to be doing that. Yeah, but it's better to try it out before you get married than to see if it's going to work. Really? But part of it was also the fact that they didn't just think the law applied. When you tell them, hey, by the way, not going to Mass on Sunday and holy days obligations is a mortal sin. Yeah, but I'm too tired to get out of bed today. God would understand.
Then you go on Saturday.
Yeah.
Saturday night Mass then.
Or even, most Catholic churches have 7-day services.
Yeah, and honestly, most Protestant churches don't start until 10:30, 11 o'clock.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, they got no excuse for not going to church.
That is true.
You can't be somewhere by 10:30.
And then especially, speaking of the Protestant churches, they have evening services. They've got like Wednesday evening, and then they do like a 6 or, usually like a 6 p.m., like a 4 p.m. or a 6 p.m. Sunday.
Yeah.
So there's like, don't get me wrong, I've used excuses before, but
we lived together for many years before we were married. I can't.
That too.
Those in glass houses and whatnot, but
yeah, no, it's fine.
It's about where we're at now, not where we came from.
That is also true.
Yeah.
And that it's gonna sound like an excuse, but like, how was I to know better?
You knew better.
I did. I definitely did.
You knew better. I knew better.
I for sure knew better.
Yeah.
But and that's kind of like, that's an excuse that we can use maybe like 40 years ago.
Right.
I don't think we get to use that one anymore. What we can do now, though, is model correct behavior. We're definitely in a lead by example season.
Yeah.
We're in the nobody wants to hear you're noticing anymore. Nobody wants to hear you pointing out shit. Nobody cares. Everybody who needs to hear the things has heard it. Now we just need to start like modeling the behavior at which we want to see. And we have to start leading by example mostly.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's keep this one going for a minute.
You want to do your go ahead.
Don't these people understand that?
Oopsie.
Some people just are busy on these days. There's no concept of the law binding them. This also means that when they do something wrong or have a defect, they have no shame about it, which is the segue into the demon of depravity, which is the demon of the next generation. Because they are narcissistic, Generation X or Y has absolutely no common courtesy because they were never trained in it in a way whatsoever. Rather, they were trained to focus on themselves. Courtesy requires circumspection. You got to be looking around, paying attention to others. This lack of courtesy extends to everything from holding the door for other people to giving deference to their elders, getting out of the way when people are waiting on them. This is a beaut. One time I'm driving down the road. My parents were complaining about a similar thing recently. I'm driving down the road in a car. These people from that generation were walking smack down the middle of the road. They had the whole road blocked up. They see you back there. It has absolutely no impact on them psychologically that there's cars stacking up behind them while they... Finally, I get it's a little bit of...
Well, we know what those people were.
Well,
that sounds like endless shrimp behavior to me.
It does sound like endless shrimp behavior, but I
owe Raven $2 now.
No, you do. Wow. When I heard it, I thought about the St. Jude runners. What was that, like
the three of them that were holding up that line of traffic? Yes.
Yes. So like two not this past weekend before last, the local St. Jude Cancer Run thing was happening. And it's a long run. I'll give it to these people, whatever. It's a huge thing. The whole community gets into it. All the towns, they all run into the big Peoria to the hospital, and it's a thing. So we're coming back from going out with the boat, and we just see people randomly on the road, just like in their little safety vests, running in the street. And it's like 3.
No, wait. First, we saw the main group go by.
Oh, well, yeah.
15 minutes prior,
right.
the big main group. And then, after that, we turn up a side road, and there's 3 stragglers. Power walking, basically.
Basically power
walking. With a cop car behind them and 2 miles of traffic.
Yeah.
Like, just lined up behind them doing 1 mile an hour, if
creeping.
that. Doing power walking speed.
Barely rolling.
Yeah.
And it was, about 2 miles of traffic behind those 3 ladies. And there was not an ounce. And they didn't even look like they had done the whole marathon.
Right.
Like, they looked like they just hopped out of the bus that was behind them and was like, we're almost there, ladies. Just this last stretch. I don't know. There was very little effort being put forth and not enough visible discomfort for all the people behind them.
Yeah.
That was my main takeaway. I was like, I'd have dove in the ditch 400 feet ago and been like, go on without me.
I'd have just stepped over to the shoulder and let the cars go by.
That would have also been a logical solution.
It's not like that wasn't an option.
I would have just been so mortified. I'd been like, please, God, just make me disappear.
I'd have never let it go on that long to get mortified. I'd just stepped off to the shoulder and waved them through. Like,
fair enough.
My bad. The rest of the people left me behind miles ago.
Fair enough. Right. I'm not cut out for this.
All right. So where are we at here? Right here. 4004, no shame.
Yep.
And then we'll probably let this roll for 2 minutes and then call it.
Yep.
Okay. So here we are.
This generation.
Was it really God's wish to kill Abraham's elder son?
Come on.
Why Isaac needed to be punished by God if he did not harm?
Because they lack any shame, they also have no sense of honor. They have no concept of honor or the value of it. Honor meaning the perception of other people of your excellence, the manifestation of excellence. They have no concept of that whatsoever. Effeminacy has become full-blown in this generation. The men have absolutely no inclination to man up, and in fact they feel the roles of women are completely arbitrary and don't apply to them. They also have no shame in relationship to talking about their sexual experiences or activities, which then leads to Generation Z. Generation Z is a common name in the U.S. and other Western nations for the group of people born from the earlier mid-1900s to the present, with the earliest date starting in 1990. This generation is the one that is completely plugged into technology. It is the generation that has gone without a coherent moral code, religious doctrine, or society norms. They didn't get any of it. Even the X and Y generations had some semblance of it because their parents would kind of talk about it from now and then. This generation is getting none of that. I mean, literally none. Generation Y knows about the moral code, again, from their parents, but they just don't believe it applies to them. But Generation X has no moral formation at all. They have no concept of moral right and wrong. This generation, Generation Z, is the one that was left to the daycares, where no moral training was ever given them. This is why they can go into McDonald's and mow people down with an AK-47 and have no compunction about it. Doesn't faze them at all. There's no moral code. Unlike Generations X and Y, who have been spanked or reprimanded from time to time when they did something wrong, not too much, but once in a great while, even though not was taught to them as to why it was wrong, this generation received no moral formation at all from their parents. If they did receive moral formation, it tended to be what is in the general culture today, where sins are described more in terms of how did you hurt the environment, or how, generally how did you hurt God's feelings? Well, first of all, God doesn't have any feelings, but you got that kind of a problem. This is the generation that ended up really having little or no moral compass at all. For this reason, those who are older in this generation are beset by a spirit of depravity, as can be gained by any cursory search on the internet.
All right.
Oh, we gotta keep going.
Oh, we gotta keep going?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know what's coming, but apparently she does.
Oh, it gets...
Okay.
It gets good.
It gets good?
Yeah.
It's already... Okay. All right, let me switch back into place.
Sorry.
Sorry for interrupting, people. My bad.
Sorry.
I apologize.
Many of the older members of this generation are engaging in forms of activity and behaviors that prostitutes of ages past would have refused to do so out of just basic decency. This is the inversion generation. in the sense that often what they considered acceptable, the term moral is not used by this generation since psychology has managed to reduce that to the pejorative or simply remove it, is the inverse of what the greatest generation would consider acceptable. Everything from living together as a norm before marriage to viewing same-sex marriage as a non-issue, because they cannot see why others have a hang-up with them. If they love each other, why not? This does not bode well, because the younger members of this generation are starting to show the signs of a spirit that will come full-blown in the generation that's being born now, which I call the sixth generation. In my estimation, the next generation, some of which are under the age of 5, and which will continue for the next decade or so as the sixth generation, since it is the sixth generation since the lost generation. This generation will have a spirit that is not like any of the other generation. Exorcists have known that the introduction to the occult, that is to Satanism and witchcraft and things like that, is almost always accomplished through immorality, especially in the areas of 6th and 9th commandments, that is depravity. Once a person has fully indulged himself in those areas, the demons begin leading the individual down a path towards worship of them and involvement in demonic activities such as witchcraft or Satanism. The previous generation's slow descent into sexual depravity of the prior generation, fueled by a prolific pornography industry, has opened the door to the spirit of paganism. We're already seeing the precursor of this spirit. The wildly successful Harry Potter series, which, by the way,
he gives Harry Potter a hard time. And
I think we're good enough there.
That's fine.
I think it makes the point, and it's true.
And that's like whenever when he says the sixth generation is going to deal with the spirit of paganism, bro, he ain't wrong.
No, paganism as a whole is making a legitimate comeback.
Huge resurgence. Like we went from having
look at the Olympics there.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's even before that. Like,
oh no, definitely before that. I'm just saying, like, if you want a glaring example,
none of the chicks my age ever. Not none of them, because some of us did, but like a majority of them never grew out of that weird adolescent, teenagey rebellion. I'm a witch phase. Like none of them grew out of that. Like because their moms were like that. And it opened the door for that. So then, because mom modeled that behavior, they do it. And then now, like, that's all that they know. So that they've been doing that. And now they're having kids.
Right. Well, there's that. But there's also the legitimate worship. People are legitimately worshiping the old gods these days. The lowercase g gods. The Norse gods, the Greek gods, the old Celtic gods are even making a comeback. Yeah.
In one of these timestamps that I've done, he mentions that in Hollywood, they outright admit that they use succubus spirits as muses to get information from or to gain power. And I don't know which artists explicitly admit it anymore, but they're out. They say it, right? Like they have to tell us that that's what they're doing to the implied consent, so that way whatever magic they're trying to do actually works. But yeah, and the whole reason why it's effective is because Vatican II, but but then also collectively we've written it off. We've decided that woo woo is cool and all, just not whenever it's Catholic,
right? Or
when it comes to legitimate demons and problem solving.
Yeah.
The main takeaway, I hope, is that you just pray your way out of it.
Yeah.
That's the answer.
I would say so, yes.
Pray your way out of it and then lead by example. Yes.
So, I think that's a good point for us to leave off with this tonight.
Sure, yeah.
Well, mainly because it's getting late and
it is getting
early.
Late. Yeah, I know.
Because of the technical difficulties, we lost like a half hour.
That is true.
Because we had to start twice.
Yes, we did.
So
we appreciate you guys hanging out with us.
Yeah, we do appreciate you guys hanging out. We thank you.
Now
we hope you enjoyed.
I feel better about our fan base knowing that they all were young working youths.
Right.
That was a nice share that we all had.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. If you're watching the replay, let us know. Let us know what you think in the comments. Make sure that you're subscribed.
Yep.
So that way you get notifications.
And then also, we're going away for a little trip this weekend, so I'm not sure if there's going to be a Sunday show or not.
Oh yeah, that's right. I don't know if we're going to do one. If we're camping.
I kind of have a topic, so if we get back early enough, we might do a show. So I guess check in at 6:30 on Sunday and see if we're here or not.
Yeah.
So until then, thank you guys for hanging out so much. We really appreciate you guys. And we will see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.